Tonight, rash of arsons. Residents in Fort St. John told to be on the lookout. Another increase. PNG looking to raise the price of natural gas. An energy superpower. Canada's Prime Minister calls for new pipelines. Good evening and thank you for joining us. And we begin tonight with emergency officials in Fort St. John sounding the alarm over a rash of arsons recently. 8 suspicious fires have been started in the last 2 months. And RCMP and the Fort St. John Fire Department say the evidence they've gathered suggests the fires were intentionally set. Officials add while there have been no injuries reported, these fires pose a significant risk to the public. And several of the fires have occurred in recreational areas across the city. 3 separate fires have been reported in Kin Park, 2 others at the Soraris Ball Diamonds. Witnesses report this past weekend that several youth were spotted at Kin Park, allegedly lighting fires near the pump track. Parents and guardians are being asked to speak to kids about the importance of fire safety, and anyone with any information on these fires is being asked to contact the Fort St. John RCMP detachment. Drivers using the Taylor Bridge during the day should expect some delays over the next 2 weeks. Crews will be washing the bridge deck until May the 15th. The work is being done between 9 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. Monday to Friday. The bridge will be reduced to single-lane alternating traffic. Drivers can expect up to 20-minute delays. Vehicles will be escorted over the bridge by a pilot truck. Oversized loads will not be permitted to cross during the work, and there will be a 1-hour break from 12 to 1 p.m. to accommodate for noon-hour traffic. Well, it feels like the price of almost everything is increasing, and now residents of Northeast BC can add the cost of heating their homes to that list. Pacific Northern Gas has submitted an application to increase rates over the course of the next 3 years. The hikes would affect customers in Fort St. John and Dawson Creek. The company's application to the British Columbia Utilities Commission would see basic rates and delivery charges rise by close to 9%. The increase, if approved, would start in 2026 and be in effect for 3 years. As for this year's price hike, it came into effect on January the 1st and will be fully in effect beginning on May the 1st. The latest data on short-term rentals in British Columbia suggests the province's crackdown on illegal listings is working.
It shows that we've got 20,000 people, 20,000 plus units registered across the province for short-term rentals. It means that our enforcement of short-term rentals can go to the next stage.
The next stage of the project kicks off tomorrow. That's when all short-term rental hosts will need to have registered their listings and received a provincial registration number. The province says it has seen 12% of the entire homes return to the long-term rental market since restrictions were introduced in 2023. The government adds that's also led to a drop in monthly rents across British Columbia. Auto dealers in BC say the loss of the provincial electric vehicle rebate will cause prices to rise on all new cars and trucks, even those powered by fossil fuels. British Columbians who buy electric vehicles and certain hybrids can be eligible for up to $4,000 in provincial rebates. But the program is only for 2 more weeks. Then on May the 15th, the province will pause those rebates. Well, auto dealers saying it's both surprising and a disappointment. Money allocated for a similar federal EV rebate program ran out earlier this year. Combined, the 2 programs knocked up to $9,000 off the price of an electric vehicle in Canada. Well, a new mandate from the Prime Minister is bringing cautious optimism to the energy industry here in Western Canada. Minutes after securing a Liberal minority government Monday night, Mark Carney reiterated his stance to grow the economy, and he's pledging to build out Canadian oil and gas, both conventional and clean energy. He's also called for new pipelines, including one to the east. The Canadian Association for Petroleum Producers says this is a chance to rejuvenate the Canadian economy and grow exports to international markets. Still, oil and gas groups say they want to see action to back up Carney's words.
We need the right regulatory environment. We need the Prime Minister at the highest levels of government to articulate that we're ready to start building, the government is behind these projects, and we're serious about building these infrastructure projects both to the West Coast but also to the East Coast.
Canada's energy sector was a key issue on the campaign trail, with both Carney and Pierre Poilievre unveiling plans for new pipelines. And a slowdown in oil and gas production contributing to Canada's economy contracting by 0.2% in February. It's the first monthly decrease since November. Numbers from Stats Canada show activities across the mining, oil and gas, and construction sectors all shrank. Part of the February decline was also blamed on bad weather and snowstorms across much of the country. StatsCan says the economy is likely to expand by 0.1% in March, but that modest growth forecast could be impacted by Donald Trump's tariffs. Meantime, the Canadian economy is heading for a recession this year, that according to an economic outlook by Deloitte Canada. It forecasts growth slowing by 1.1% in the second quarter. Then in quarter three, it's expected to slow by 0.9%, and that would meet the definition of a recession. Deloitte telling the Financial Post it's predicting the unemployment rate in Canada to be above 7%, anticipating around 75,000 job losses, with manufacturing, steel, and aluminum industries most at risk. But it also predicts a rebound at the end of this year, with the GDP projected to grow 2.4%. Well, there could be more job action from Canada Post workers in a matter of weeks. Negotiations resume today as the deadline on their collective agreement approaches. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers suspended its strike late last year to allow Federal Commission to review the dispute and make recommendations to resolve it. The Commission is expected to release its final report by May the 15th. As for the collective bargaining agreement, that expires on May the 22nd. And Donald Trump's tariffs are expected to be a biggest challenge facing Parliament when MPs get back to work next month. It'll be a House that looks very different, with the Conservatives looking to regroup as Pierre Poilievre's future remains uncertain. CTV's Michael Couture reports.
As Prime Minister Mark Carney holds transition meetings, federal Conservatives are assessing the results, while some of their provincial cousins have some pointed criticism.
I hope they do some soul searching.
Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston didn't hold back in his assessment of the federal election.
I think the Conservative Party of Canada was very good at pushing people away, not so good at pulling people in.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford was one of those people. His team openly criticized Poilievre's campaign, and clearly there's still bad blood.
Last time I checked, Pierre Poilievre never came out in our election. Matter of fact, him or one of his lieutenants told every one of his members, "Don't you dare go out and help the PCs." Isn't that ironic? But anyways, I'm not going to dig deep into this.
A federal Conservative campaign source tells CTV News that despite losing his seat, Pierre Poilievre is making calls to the grassroots of the party to get their feedback. One defeated Conservative MP who once falsely claimed the cost of living was driving parents to traffic their kids posted a message online calling for her party to be a more moderate opposition.
To hold them accountable, but find that sweet spot where we are not so extreme, you know.
Without a seat in the House of Commons, Poilievre could have one of his MP-elects step down and give up their riding so he can run in a by-election.
And then the Prime Minister has up to 6 months to actually call that by-election. So do the math. We're looking, at the end of 2025 before that by-election is probably even called.
With Jagmeet Singh losing his seat, the NDP must also choose an interim leader, and a party source says caucus could start that process next week. Michael Couture, CTV News, Ottawa.
And Jonathan Pedneau is resigning as the co-leader of the Green Party. Pedneau posted online saying, "Twice now I have failed to convince my fellow citizens to send me to Ottawa." He says he is thankful for the leadership of Elizabeth May, and he urged the party to protect what it's built and fight for the space it's created. Pedneau lost his bid to represent the Montreal riding of Outremont in this week's federal election. And after a campaign that saw tariff and annexation threats take center stage, the U.S. president this afternoon weighing in on Mark Carney's election victory.
Well, I think we're going to have a great relationship. He called me up yesterday. He said, let's make a deal. He's a very nice gentleman, and he's going to come to the White House very shortly, within the next week or less.
The Prime Minister's office has not confirmed a date for the meeting, only that it will happen in the near future. The White House said it's expected to happen within the next week or less. Carney has previously said that a meeting would only happen if Trump respects Canada's sovereignty. A devastated mayor of Vancouver spoke today about the failings of the mental health care system in British Columbia. This after 11 people died at a weekend festival. They were allegedly killed by a driver who was under doctor's care but on extended leave from hospital. And the mayor called it a health crisis that's become a public safety crisis. Here's Andrew Johnson on what was said and what needs to change.
Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim says he finds it hard to accept the man accused of mass murder at a Filipino festival was being supervised by a care team, part of what Sim calls a recurring pattern. Kai G. Adam Lowe is the 30-year-old police say was driving the SUV that sped through a street packed with pedestrians Saturday night. We've learned this week Lowe's brother was murdered early last year, and Lowe later launched a GoFundMe asking for donations after he said his grieving mother had attempted suicide. Adam Lowe was on extended leave from hospital. That means he'd been discharged, but was still considered an involuntary patient and needed to adhere to conditions. Those conditions could include living at a specific address, having a curfew, taking medication in front of witnesses, or going to mandatory appointments.
This is incredibly difficult to hear and even harder to accept because it points to a deeper failure in the mental health system. I continue to call on senior levels of government to act to expand compassionate mandatory care, to resource secure treatment beds beyond the 400 currently committed.
Vancouver Coastal Health tells us there was no indication Lowe was not following his treatment plan or was a safety risk. The mayor also announced today there are plans for a public memorial in about 2 weeks to honor the lives lost in this city still in disbelief.
Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
The sexual assault trial of 5 former World Junior hockey players resumed today in London, Ontario. The court was shown video taken at a bar and at the hotel where the alleged assault took place. CTV's Adrian Gabriel is following the trial.
Day 3 of this trial has given us a glimpse of multiple videos. In one, we see the alleged victim on the dance floor with several players from that World Junior hockey team. We also see video recordings after the alleged group sexual assaults. Entering the court at a brisk pace, each of the accused arrived at this Ontario Superior Court in London to hear the trial's first witness. Defense attorney Daniel Brown, who's representing Alex Fermenton, began the trial's first cross-examination, questioning the evidence gathered by London police detective Tiffany Waukee, including the percentage of alcohol in the 8 drinks said to have been consumed by the alleged victim, who we can only identify as EM. Detective Waukee said she was unaware how strong the drinks were. The jury of 9 women and 5 men were also shown video inside Jack's bar, where EM can be seen on the dance floor with one of the accused, Michael McLeod. Other players are also seen dancing with or near EM at different times. Around 1:30 in the morning, bar security video shows McLeod and EM leaving together, eventually arriving at this London, Ontario hotel where they had consensual sex, though the jury has been shown a group text message from McLeod inviting teammates to room 209. Multiple young men began to arrive. That's when the alleged group sexual assault began. Former World Junior Team Canada captain Dylan Dubé, Cal Foote, Carter Hart, McLeod, and Fermenton have each been charged with sexual assault. McLeod is also facing 1 charge of being party to the offense. The jury were also shown 2 cell phone videos from inside the hotel room. In one, you hear a male's voice ask, "You're okay with this, right?" EM replies, "Yeah, I'm okay," though the Crown argues that the alleged victim was manipulated and intimidated into staying in the room. This is a case that will revolve around consent and whether or not it was granted throughout the early morning hours. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, London, Ontario.
All right, we will be right back after the break with the weather, and there are some warm temperatures in the forecast. Please do stay tuned.